Hello, how are you guys?
Probably put both headphones on.
I
Welcome,
know.
gentlemen. Yeah, well, 3 seats and 3 of you. So,
Okay.
Matt Reeves,
Pick your
Steve Zahn,
poison.
Andy Serkis. Welcome to
Yeah.
the show.
how's it
Hello.
going, gentlemen?
Good.
Have a seat. How are you? Good. This is
How you
Jim.
doing?
I'm Sam.
How are you?
Steve.
How are you?
How are you, man?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
See you.
Congrats on the big movie and entering into summer blockbuster world for this year.
Thank you.
This is it exciting or is it stressful? Just because
Well-
now you're talking about like Spider-Man comes out
It's
last
fun.
weekend.
Oh yeah,
and
thanks
you're
for mentioning that. That's,
Yeah.
that's the disaster.
Doesn't help.
Well, it's so
That's more of a
huge.
kids movie, though. Nobody wants to see that.
No, I don't think anybody saw that.
Yeah.
Jim, it made $117 million.
I gotta
but
go.
that's
No, I mean that's the thing is we spent. I spent literally 3 years working on this movie, so it's this weird thing where suddenly you finish it. The effects finish so late that the moment that I see the movie, we have to share the movie, and then all of a sudden it's like now we're talking about it, and then it's going to come out, and then there's like it's hugely competitive time. I mean,
So
there's-
you don't have that, like most people come in and they promote a project and they're kind of removed from it because they've moved on to the next thing.
Oh
and it
yeah,
take-
for sure.
but-
Yeah, this is different than that because
Yeah.
because literally the realization of what we do. Mark Bombeck and I spent almost a year writing it, and then we shot it over the course of 8 months, and we were in post on this for over a year. So the idea is that we get these incredible performances from these guys, and then we spend a year working on the cut and working with Weta, the amazing artist at Weta, to shot by shot make sure that you are feeling the same thing looking at these apes that we felt looking at these actors, and that is a hard process, and it takes so long. It's
What is
crazy.
the biggest mistake somebody makes when they're doing motion capture? It's not an easy thing to do. So what is the biggest thing that people do that screws it up?
Well, the biggest thing is that people misunderstand what the process is because performance capture is just a series of cameras, and the performances are what it's about. So it's the one place where visual effects are all about realizing a performance. And people talk about Andy as being the greatest mocap actor of all time. It's a nonsensical idea because what that is basically a system that records a performance. What he is one of the best actors in the world.
Yeah.
He's
So
incredible.
to screw up the motion capture is to suck. I mean that's
Well
it.
put, yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
So if you're a terrible actor, you won't be good at.
It's basically
this.
fucking
yeah,
up the
if
role.
you show up and you do and your chimp is horrible and you don't then it's
That's
bad. It's truly that. I mean, if you're good, the technical people on set. The crazy thing that I learned, I couldn't. I was new to this,
Right.
and I showed up in the technical artists, the Weta people, are not like this separate group. They are as involved when you're shooting. They're as excited about a good scene as anybody, because they know then, wow, we got something awesome. This is going to be a
Right.
challenge, and we're going to have to, how do we put this together? How do we make that work?
Yeah.
And it's not about the big scene with explosions. It's about the push in close up that you shot like any other movie where, it pushes into Andy and you see this, 17 emotions in this guy's face, which is amazing.
Yeah.
How do we do that? How do the thing we're feeling right now, you feel 2 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
So it's like any other role. There's a way to do it right, and there's a way to
There's-
screw it
there's-
up, basically.
Which is
Exactly.
to
Which
be
is
to be the character.
Exactly.
I mean, it's to be truthful and honest and emotionally connect with the other actors that you're working with, and that's the bottom line. There is this crazy mystery that surrounds this performance capture stuff, and it comes from other actors, it comes from a perception. But that, I have to say, that is changing. But it's like Steve's saying, it's like Matt's saying. You can't make if someone does a really bad performance in a live action movie, you can't do anything about that. You can't do you can cut around it, but you can't make that performance any better. And it's exactly the same with motion capture or performance capture cameras. They're just another way of recording an actor's performance. So you can't you have to find it on the day. It's not that you can't augment the performance. What that's where I think people get mixed up about it. The whole point is that you want to have these great performances on the day between actors, and then they finally get cloaked and transferred onto the faces of these apes, and made believable, and that's and made to what Weta are extraordinary, and I've been working with them for 17 years, and they've reached a point now where they are the fidelity of what they do in terms of honouring the acting performances and the way they render those characters now to make them believable. Are a second to none.
But I think people also they don't understand it because it's so new. I mean, as far as film goes, it's very new, and I think that people when they see either Caesar or Bad Ape or Gollum or any of these characters, they associate it as voiceover.
No,
you know what I mean?
Which is the opposite of what it is.
And it's not what it is.
Yeah.
You're actually
no, it's so much more than that. I mean, the performance is the performance. The way they move, it's a series of cameras and tracking markers on a performer. And that performance is what it's all about. The way they move, everything, the emotion that they're feeling and expressing on their faces, that is what the cameras are capturing. And then that's what we edit together. We edit together. The first version of this movie is Planet of the Mocap Actors. Right. And that version of the movie is awesome. It works.
That means as a director, though, you have to visually see what's going to be there.
I do, but with the actors, it's much less hard than you would think, because what I'm looking at is the emotion. If the emotion of the scene is working, that I know is what we're going to have. The hardest part is then making sure that Weta gets all of that, because that's the thing. When I came and I did a crash course on Dawn, because I hadn't done performance capture, and I asked to see every single shot of Andy and every single shot of Caesar, because I didn't quite understand the process yet, and I was like, oh, that's it. The reason that I feel this way is because Andy's incredible. And what I actually said to them was, first of all, what you guys did is amazing, and yet I see detail in his performance emotionally, like in a moment when he's enraged, but you can see the sadness in his eyes, that's even more emotional than what Caesar is. Andy's better than Caesar. And I was like, we have to push and see if we can get as much of what he's done into Caesar. And I knew from seeing Rise that I was terribly affected by what he'd done, but he's an incredible actor. And the goal is to try and get everything that these guys are doing and make it visible on those apes' faces.
Do you guys now, when you do a role like this, do you think too much credit, because people talk about motion capture, do you think too much credit is given to the computers and After Effects, and they don't realize, hey, that's actually just what we did?
No,
or not enough credit is given to you?
It's valid credit to it. It's not. That's an amazing process. Those guys are. I mean, that Weta. That is an amazing group of artists that keep getting better and better. It has nothing about this competition. It's just, it's hard to have gone through a process where you're so proud of your work as an actor to have, look, it's hard to play a teacher, okay? It's harder to play a teacher who's a chimpanzee. And then you master that, and you bust your ass for 6 months, literally. And then you read in a thing like lends his voice to the
that's
the character. Yeah. It's if I was at home and I flew in a couple times and they sent me a check
to show up in sweatpants and just do a funny cartoon voice.
So
and
you just go, lend my voice. What are you kidding?
Yeah.
But also, the artists at Weta would be the first to tell you that they're following the performance. This is the idea of the technology. The technology is recording a performance because they want to use that performance. And it is incredible what they do. I mean, there are two groups of amazing artists that make this illusion possible. First are the actors, and they're the ones who are bearing their souls. And the other are these incredible artists who not only are doing, they've got these simulations that they're doing to make the apes look more real in this movie than they have. This is a high watermark for these effects.
Yeah.
But the other aspect of that is an interpretation of these performances, because the anatomy that is on these guys' faces is not the anatomy that's on the apes' faces. So somehow they have to take those same shapes and make sure that we see them in a way that keeps the ape looking believable, and yet they're still feeling. So there's tremendous artistry that these guys who are doing that have, and so it's just the people who do this. We have the best actors in the world, and we have the best artists at Weta in the world.
And
How much time do you guys? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and we shoot this on location.
Yeah,
That's the
people don't
other
understand
thing.
that either.
They
Yeah.
think you're in a room.
Right.
These
It's
guys
like
are out in the
300.
snow. These guys are in the-
300
yeah.
was a fake background, and those guys did. But this was, if you see snow, it looked cold. It was cold. If we're wet, we were wet.
Right.
If we're running up the rainforest hill, that's exactly what we did, and that's what blew me away. I showed up. I was like, wow, we're on horseback. Okay.
You're actually doing that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I have to get off the horse, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to get off the horse. I can't get off as Steve, as pretending to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
I have to get off effortlessly, like I'm a little chimp that's
Right.
really excited. How the hell am I going to do that without throwing my back out? You know,
Well, didn't you have physical problems during it?
none of your business, man.
Come on, just tell me. Come on, I'm dying to know. It's the first thing I wanted to ask you.
No,
was it?
But that had nothing to do with the movie.
no, I did constantly. Look, to be honest with you, I stretched 3 times a day. I took Epsom salt baths. That first 2 weeks, I was in pain, man. I never let these guys know because it's Andy Serkis, you know. And I mean, I was so nervous to be for real. I've never been more scared in my life. I was one time on stage, but that was
Yeah.
it's a different story. But yeah, it was really the most physical job since I had done theater.
And how do you prepare for that? That's what I want to ask you. Like, I know to prepare for a role, some people immerse themselves in it. So what do you do? Do you actually spend time around apes or go to a zoo or do you watch video or how do you get ready for that?
Terry Notary he plays Rocket, right? And he's amazing actor, but an amazing coach. He was a great coach. And I came into it late, so Andy was already working, so I was just with Terry. And Terry we just started like breathing and, you know, looking at each other and talking about core and center. And, you know, I thought we were just going to run around and pretend we were apes, you know. But it started at this really, you know, internal place. And then I went to my apartment. I spent, you know, this is my job. So I got 2.5 weeks to prepare. I literally prepared every waking second of the day. I was watching videos. I was fascinated with chimps. Why is that chimp just sitting in the corner doing nothing different than me sitting in the corner doing nothing? And I was constantly working on it to the point of where it became second nature. And then I could play a character because that's the main thing. I have to play this mountain man guy who's a hoarder.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
who's afraid of everything.
Is it scary to come into a franchise like this that's fairly beloved? You know, I'm a big fan of the whole franchise, and I love this third movie, by the way. But your character is a comic relief character, and that can be, if not done right, it was done right here, but if not done right, that's been the kiss of death in other movies.
Oh, totally. I agree. But the only thing that I didn't see him as a comic relief character. Obviously, I'm not stupid, and I know that this is going to add some levity just because he's different speed than these guys. But I saw that character as a very tragic. You know, this guy had to escape and live. He's been living on his own for 2 years. His friends are dead. And the only way he's kept his sanity is by hoarding stuffed animals and crap.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he comes across these guys and he's so in need of companionship, you know, and he goes against his instincts to really take them to where they want to go. And I thought of him as he moved me. The character was beautiful to me, and this vulnerable little guy, you know.
I mean, I have to say the reason that I cast Steve was because he came in and we actually met over Skype. He was down doing a TV series in Puerto Rico, and we had these conversations, and he was really talking about how much he loved the movies and loved Andy, and was like, this is, I'm really excited about this because this role really moves me. And we started talking about, you know, being fathers, and he started doing one of the scenes, and I started crying because there's a scene between, you know, the scene where they both talk about their children.
Yes.
And it's the core of the character, and yes, he's humorous, but that scene's not funny.
Right.
And that was the core of what Steve did. It was very emotional.
There's the binocular thing, and I thought that was the only
All right, can we
time.
not talk about this?
Really? Well, binoculars.
Right.
I'll just say that, but it's the
That was
only
like
scene
throw
where
a
I was
gag
like,
in to ease the tension.
But that was the only time where I thought, I don't know this guy.
This guy's a chimp. He doesn't have binoculars.
I'll tell you,
It totally works though.
it got a laugh at the screening I went to.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it works.
A couple people want to call in and ask you guys questions. Pancho from Texas. Hello.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey.
My question is to Andy. How much has Ueda's technology advanced since you made Lord of the Rings to now? I mean, you go through to the Hobbits, you see what they did with with smog and stuff like that. And also, Steve, I love that movie, Not So Badass.
Oh, right on, dude.
So, so yeah. So in terms of the technological advancements, yeah. I mean, it's what's been incredible is when we shot Lord of the Rings at the time. It was we're only able to use motion capture cameras to capture the physical aspects of what I was doing as Gollum, and then the animators had to copy my facial expressions from film. So they literally were rotoscoping or painting over my facial expressions. And then when we started working on King Kong, that was the first time that we were able to put markers, dots on our faces, and that was like driving for the first time a digital mask of a character. But it was inside a studio, and it was like an array of cameras which were 180 degrees, so you had to face in one particular direction. And then the next film I did, we started to use head-mounted cameras, which meant that we were freed up. We were not tethered to anything, and we could move around. When we started to work on Rise, Dawn, and War, what we started to do was to take everything out, as Steve was saying earlier, on location. So we were shooting in the first film in the house that Caesar was brought up in, and the laboratory and the ape sanctuary. And then with Matt, when he came on board with Dawn and wanted to take things out into the open, we shot in rainforests, and now we're shooting in mountains and snow and all that kind of stuff. So the technology's become more robust, and the cameras and the suits that we wear can cope with all these conditions. But what has also radically changed is the artistry, is the ability to actually that Weta, this incredible group of CG artists, know now how to take the performance, the facial performance, and map it onto the face of an ape to such a high degree, and which makes everything much more believable.
I have a
Thank you. Thanks, Pancho.
I have a question for Steve that doesn't have to do with this Apes movie. There was a reunion recently of a band called the Onetters. I don't know if you've heard of this band. Oh, the Oneaters. That's what
Come on, man.
But you were not there for the reunion of the Wonders.
No, I wasn't there.
Why were you not there?
Because I don't like those guys.
Is that it? You're
No,
just trying to
of course
avoid them
not.
altogether. Don't bring
No.
up that movie.
Yeah, no. No, I'm very close. I mean, Tom Everett Scott's still one of my best friends. Yeah, no, I was busy. I couldn't do it. We tried to work it out earlier, later, and I was busy shooting a pilot in Vancouver. I'm always in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I couldn't make it.
Was
Couldn't
it
swing it? It was embarrassing because they held my picture up.
Right.
I'm like, what?
It's like just
Yeah, it was a bummer. I've gotten a lot of flack for that, and I deserve it, but I couldn't do anything about it.
Right.
And it was my daughter's birthday, and
She had a lot of excuses.
You were busy.
I had a lot of excuses,
Yeah.
but they were valid. And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Does
I'm a family guy.
Does it boggle your mind how popular that movie still is?
I love it.
Yeah,
It's such a great movie.
it really is.
It was a huge experience. I mean, that was early on you get in jobs like that, Tom Hanks is quite a mentor, and he taught us a lot. And then you're young, you get spoiled. You
That's what I was going to ask. Is it tough to move on to the next?
You think, you don't appreciate it at the time, and you go, wow. And then you think they're all going to be like that, like really fun and challenging and with wonderful people. And then it's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. And that's why I honestly, this job here was equivalent to that.
Really?
Just in the sense of the work, how hard it was, how challenging, how this crew was just. When you work with just brilliant people, then everybody's really confident. No one has pretense. No one's pulling crap on set. There's no drama. You just have excellent people around each other. It's a joy.
And Matt, I wanted to ask Matt too, if you about directing Cloverfield, because you got a lot of the people people loved it or hated it. I happen to love it because I thought it was amazing. But people were like, "Oh man, it made me sick." Like, was that that was the big criticism of the film, is that people got nauseous because of the camera motion. But I thought that was amazing.
Did you get sick?
Not really, no. And I maybe a little bit, but it didn't bother me because I thought that's what you were doing.
Well, it
was
was.
fine.
I mean, the idea was to look. I'm very into being very specific and rigid about point of view, and the point of view of that movie was from this Handycam, and they're light little Handycams. And it's interesting. When we were making the movie, we were looking at it on in a theater, and we would project it, and that didn't seem to be a problem at all. It didn't seem to have the kind of shaking that would be in a Paul Greengrass movie. It didn't seem like that. But it was interesting. Then we started going and looking at it in stadium seating, and in stadium seating theaters where people are kind of sort of stacked up and looking right at it. There, I think it made me a little nauseous, but
really?
it was not the intention to make anyone sick. I'm very sorry.
And Steve, somebody wanted to ask you about your HBO show. What was your show?
Treme?
Yes, with Wendell Pierce, and I guess they just wanted to say that they loved your show.
Oh yeah, that's one of those shows it will last for a long time. David Simon, I mean, he's just a genius, and it was 4 years of being on a documentary.
Why did they cancel that? Was it just that it ran its course?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was 4 years. I mean, I've done a show that was four seasons and no one saw it. But that's the beauty of HBO, isn't it?
Yeah.
My mom saw half of it.
When you
Your mother saw half of it. It was like that.
Yeah, it was we did 4 years. 4 years? Yeah.
When you do the roles like this, especially you, Andy, like this one, I talk about it and Jim's talked about it before, stuff that we do, we find difficult to watch. When you look at the screen, do you see yourself? When you see Caesar, when you see Gollum, when you see any of these characters, do you see that's me the same way you would see it if it were not a motion capture character?
Definitely. I mean, because all your facial expressions are there. All your choices, who you are as a person, what level of putting yourself under the microscope that's gone into the character. This meeting of, I mean, it is like a digital mask, if you like, but at the same time, it's moving. It's if you put on prosthetic makeup beforehand, you wouldn't see half of the expressions of the original.
Of course,
the original
guys
films,
in masks.
John Chambers' makeup. They literally had to fight against this foam and rubber that was this encasing their faces.
The nose twitches was pretty much the movement of the
Yeah.
faces.
The whole
go
thing.
on.
So I remember seeing a documentary, and Kim Hunter was sort of saying we just had to throw our faces around to get any sort of movement into these things. Of course, you don't have to do any of that with this. You play it much more internally and subtly. And these guys are just miraculous at transferring your internal emotions and the subtlety of it, like Steve was saying earlier, in a close-up where you're not doing anything but thinking or believing and being in the emotional space of the character. That is what this does so beautifully.
How amazing is it for you to have as much information as you do about the new Star Wars movie, knowing how much people want to know, even the smallest kernel?
I feel a great sense of power.
You do, don't you?
I really do, and I like to torture people with it. I like to make people feel really, really kind of at my beck and call, and I really flaunt it.
Yeah. Well, they're missing out, and you have the
I
information.
know what's happening in the universe, in
You
the
do.
multiverse.
Somebody has a question for you, Steve. Yes, Derek.
Hey, Steve. Was calling. I have to say, I watched your scene where you shoot Bigfoot on Strange Wilderness
Yeah.
at least once a week. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was epic scene. So you smoke pot, huh?
Actually, no. I just was curious if the guys, Jim and Sam, have seen that.
No,
'cause if
I've
they
seen the
haven't,
film.
It's one of the best laughs they'll have.
I have
I
not.
can't say that I've watched the scene once a week, but I am familiar with the work.
Yeah, man, that was oh my God, making that movie. I've never laughed that hard. That was one of those movies that it was really hard for me. I screwed up a lot of takes with Justin Long and Jonah Hill and Kevin Heffernan, and I mean those guys are just so funny, and I had to play this kind of straight guy. Oh my God, it was so hard.
And then the reasoning behind Bigfoot committing suicide is just it's great.
Yeah, trying to come up with it around a fire. Like, what do we say? It's just so funny.
That's all I had, guys. Thank
All
you.
right, Uncle.
All right, thank you, Derek.
Andy, does it get frustrating, like the way we talk about how people don't understand what it is that you do specifically and what both of you did on this film? Is it frustrating to not get the recognition, whether it be from award shows or elsewhere, that a lot of people feel that you deserve?
It's faintly frustrating that people don't understand the process. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I'm interested in is people fully understanding what we do, and I've become this kind of de facto spokesperson for it. But I mean, the great thing is, as more and more actors come in and play these roles, Mark Rylance doing the BFG, and great actors like Steve coming in and doing bad. We won't be having this conversation forever. In 10 years' time, we'll just be able to talk about the movie of War for the Planet of the Apes. We'll be able to talk about what it means and what it is, and that's what I was thinking about this week, because so much kind of import is put onto the process, and actually my aim would be that people just think, oh, these guys are just acting. It's just a different way of capturing their performance, and now we can talk about what the movie means.
Right. It's not such a conversation about like, oh, it looks really, really good. You're like, no, but the
really
movie,
real.
The
It looks
movie,
really
It
real.
looks real. Yeah. It looks like a real.
It looks like a real thing.
Snow.
Like
It is.
you're just watching the movie like one of those lifelike paintings where you're touching it to figure, is it just a painting or no?
Well, it's new too.
actually
Plus,
telling a story
the
here.
fact that it's this good to see, that was what always took you out of movies. You could always see.
That's true.
The puppet strings or whatever it was, and now you can't see them anymore.
That
So I
was
think
the-
we're all just amazed. This fucking looks so good.
That's the thing about Cloverfield, that all the pressure was on Cloverfield, because they were like, "What's the monster gonna look like?" And if it didn't look like it would, like you wanted it to look like, that's not scary. That's not what a monster.
That's why we didn't show the movie the monster that much. I mean, that's
Right.
sort of the whole idea. Yeah, it was,
Right.
you're like, wait, what was that?
was
Fleeting
that
glimpses.
was that thing at the end in the water supposed to be the
Yes.
thing landing? Was that what that was implied?
It was a thing landing.
Okay, good. I just thought I wasn't sure. I wanted to ask you that for
Yes,
7 years now.
Yeah, there it is. There you go. You saw it.
I did see it, yeah.
Yes.
But I think somebody had to point out what that was, and I had to go back and watch it again, I think.
Was the intention for that movie to have a sequel? Because there's also the voices in the credits, like that tape that comes on, and like everybody,
Yes.
all that evidence was there.
Yeah, it is there. We may do a sequel one day. I mean, the thing is that we talked about doing a sequel, JJ and Drew and I, and we all just got really busy. I mean, everybody was doing stuff, and then JJ was like, "Hey, maybe the sequel to Cloverfield isn't a sequel at all. Maybe this is like the Twilight Zone, and we could do all these stories,
Right.
Which is really cool."
Yeah.
And he said, "But that doesn't mean we still couldn't do it, because it would be part of that world. So who knows what we'll do?" But
Yeah.
it's we had talked about doing. I had always thought I deliberately did a thing where there's a moment where they're on the Brooklyn Bridge, and he crosses paths with another person who's documenting the night, and I thought each person has a story that night. And
Absolutely.
I thought that you had the potential just to imply that there were lots of stories from different perspectives.
Just the same, exactly
Yeah.
the same movie, different perspective,
Yeah.
and now it's a different story.